We watched the music video twice. She's saying it's because the first time she read the subtitles so she understands the lyrics, and the second time she focused on the visual.
Yeah.
But I honestly think she just wanted to see Tomas 5 times twice, so 10 times.
I mean, there was nothing wrong with that. Full screen. That's how I like to see my videos, full screen.
Or is that how you like to see Tomas?
4K, full screen, Tomas. Oh shoot,
You
that's
said 4K.
Hey, they put the 2 cutest right there, just earlier. Look, it's Tomas and Tadeo right there. Okay, the other guys are cute too, but those are my favorites. Let's just say that my 2 bias together.
This part, I love this part.
Let Tomas give you the power to do whatever it is you want to do. What? It makes me want to dance.
I know. Sorry. They did this.
That was fun. Tadeo.
I know. His teeth is so much better than my teeth.
Mine too. Oh, let's learn it.
I know. See, they did this.
It's not a workout. It's not a workout move. They make it look so easy.
I know.
His eyes.
I know. Okay. Okay, Tineo, can I just borrow your jaw for like a day? I need my jawline back. Oh, how I wish I was 20s again.
That was decades ago. Wait.
Just 1 decade ago.
Okay.
Just 1 decade
Yeah,
ago.
1 decade ago.
Hey, when you met me, I still have my jawline.
Yes. I've been feeling you too good, that's why. Fun line, everybody. That's the thing. Okay, good job, guys.
Woohoo!
Bye, Tomas. He's like speaking to me.
How do you want to start this? Because mabuhay. Mabuhay. Nyawazong kulong Kirby. Hey, it's Hmong New Year. Happy Hmong New Year.
Yes.
How do you say it again?
Nyawazong Hyongchia.
Nyawazong.
Hyong.
Hyongchia.
Yeah.
Nyawazong.
Nya, wait, hold on. Nyawazong. Nyawazong.
Nyawazong.
Yeah.
Hyongchia.
Yeah.
Nyawazong.
Nyawazong Hyongchia.
So I remember it by remembering your sisters' names. Nyawazong Chongchia. Sorry, Chong. Sorry, Chia. That's how I
Okay,
remember
yes,
it.
because I have 2 sisters named, one is named Chong and one is named Chia, so that's how you'll remember it. I guess it works.
Nyawazong Chongchia. Anyways, happy Hmong New Year to all our Hmong families and friends out there.
Yes, it's a New Year season for a lot of Hmong folks in, well, everywhere.
It's the whole world.
Yeah.
Or the universe, rather. Okay.
Okay, enough messing around.
Okay, mabuhay.
Yes.
Welcome back to my channel. I'm your friendly historian, Kirby Araullo. And of course, today's video is a reaction and a breakdown of Alamat's music video. And syempre, it wouldn't be a reaction to Alamat without my partner, Yi.
Hi. Now I'm shy.
Welcome back.
Now I'm shy.
Hey, they love you reacting with me, so
Thanks, everyone. I'm super excited to come back for a reaction to Alamat. Of course, I can't pass up this opportunity to say hello to Tomas. And my second bias would be Tanea.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyways, confession.
What?
We've already seen the video. We just got back from New York for my birthday. So salamat to everybody that came out to the event, my book signing event at the restaurant Kalye in New York. Thank you for hosting us, Kalye.
Yes, shout out to Barry and Rob as well.
Yes, and Sydney.
Yes, in Sydney. Oh my gosh, yes.
So our Kalye family in NYC.
I want to go back. Soon.
Maraming salamat.
Yes, we had a lot
Good
of fun.
food,
Yeah.
And great
good
people
food,
that we met, and my friends and family.
Yes.
Mostly friends, actually. The only family is your sister that showed up.
Yes.
Friends and fans and followers and
Yeah.
family, thank you for showing up at the event. I really appreciate it. Thank you for making my birthday in the Big Apple unforgettable.
Yes.
Anyways, we just got back from New York, and right before we left, we recorded our reaction to this video, and I intended to edit it when I get back, but something's off with the audio.
Yeah.
So something's wrong with the audio, so we had to redo the reaction. So whatever reaction you saw, that's not our first reaction. That's more of us just having fun now.
Yeah.
And like, of course, as you all requested, this reaction video would be more of an educational video, a breakdown of the themes, the lines they said, the visuals and everything. And did you want to start with your overall impression?
Yeah, shout out to the 5 Tomas that I saw.
Hey, did you know the first time we watched it, we watched the music video twice. She's saying it's because the first time she read the subtitles so she understands the lyrics, and the second time she focused on the visual.
Yeah.
But I honestly think she just wanted to see Tomas 5 times twice, so 10 times.
I mean, there was nothing wrong with that.
Anyways, welcome back, and we should start talking about the video now.
Yes,
so what are your overall impression of the video? Just overall first impression when you first watched it, if you remember what we talked about.
Yeah.
Because the audio was not recorded.
I know. Well, I guess watching it again this time around, what really stood out was like just being able to understand the message even more, but also like that feeling of hope and like empowerment of like when you hear this and when you hear an important message, a powerful message, is to basically like rally you up and be able to take action. So and like even what they were saying in the subtitles that I was reading, you know, like hopefully the beat of the drums will be able to like wake you up and like hope that you're able to do something good in the world. And so that's my main takeaway of like the entire music video. The video itself was not like fancy special effects of like you know, delivering their message. And that's totally okay. I think for me that's totally okay because the message overall is for us to like do something. It's not for them to like just look pretty, even though they look pretty and handsome and nice. Right? But it's like they didn't need all the extra special effects and things like that to deliver their message. That was like my overall sort of.
That was also my overall first impression when we first watched it, is that it wasn't as like, you know, in your face type of stunning video. It wasn't as like, you know, what do they call it? What was the word you used the other day?
Wow.
Well, not wow. I think I used wow. Shock factor.
Yeah,
there you go.
Shock factor.
It was like it wasn't like as shocking as I thought it would be, but like what you said, I agree. Like, you know, overall it actually delivers the message better
because you're not
opinion.
Distracted by all the special effects. I mean, that's kind of what I was like thinking about.
Yes, and that's something that, you know, the music video is not as visually like wow or something. I mean, it is wow. It's still wow, but it's not like, you know, like, because nowadays
they didn't overdo it. That's another thing.
Yes,
They did
that's
not
what we're trying to
overdo
say.
it. They didn't overdo it to the point where it's like, okay, like, is it just for show now, or is it really to deliver a message? And I think they were able to deliver the message, but by keeping their video pretty simplistic into like, you know.
And that's what I want to share too, because, you know, a lot of times now with K-pop, J-pop, P-pop, I-pop, is that why you call it the Indonesian one? Because they're also famous. Sorry to my Indonesian friends and followers. But anyways, you know, nowadays a lot of this music video, especially in the pop genre, they're very like in your face special effects graphics.
It's got to be catchy. It's
like,
got to be like,
it's like your eyes has to be like, where am I focusing at? but for me, like, you know, maybe because we're older, I guess for me, there's no need for too much visual effects.
Yeah.
Or for me, like, you don't need too much exciting angles, because
Yeah.
that's one thing I kind of getting tired of with new videos that I've seen, music videos. Like, there's so many angles. I mean, I did that when I was in film school. Like, I did a lot of like weird angles, but it wasn't like. Well, actually, I did one time. I made a music video like this, and my friends were like, "You're making my head dizzy." So I guess I learned my lesson.
Yeah,
But
those
yeah,
are just for beginners.
Yeah, so a reminder for the younger generation that there's no need to be too much exciting or too much visual effects for you to, or too much twists and turns for you to deliver the message and entertain people and educate them at the same time. And sometimes simple but profound is better. To get your message across, you don't need to always overwhelm them with visuals.
Right.
Even though they're pretty,
sometimes
too much visual effects can be distracting on the message of the song.
Yeah.
Or whatever message you're trying to convey. And that's my advice to the young aspiring video creators, cinematographers, filmmakers out there. Cinematography does not always need to be in your face. Subtlety is an art that, to be honest, not many can actually execute with success.
Yeah.
And if you master subtlety, that's better than mastering all these visual effects. Yeah, so more often than not, subtlety is actually a very powerful tool to convey a message.
I agree. And also
that's my rant.
Yes, your message and your story should be basically good enough without you to like having to add all the extra fluff to make it what it is. Your story, if it's good, it'll stand by itself without all the special.
Yeah, like this song. The message of the song is there. The story they're trying to say is there. There's no need for all the visual effects that we've seen in other videos.
Let me think.
You can break it down if you want.
Yeah, I guess we'll break it down.
That's how you break down the song. Dadagun, dadagun, dadagun,
Dadagun, what? Dadagun?
Dadagun, 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 dong.
Dadagun, dagudung. Dagudung, dagudung.
Dadagun, 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 dong.
I'll just do it my version. Bada boom, bada boom, boom. It trips me out. It's like a tongue.
Papa Ugong.
That's a tongue twister.
Come on, you got this. Dadagun, 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 dong.
Dagudung, dagudung. No, wrong.
Okay. Papa Ugong.
Papa Ung. Can I just do it in my version? It's a tongue twister.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Tongue twister. Okay. I'm trying my best, but there's so many like syllables in like one word.
Yeah. Okay, apart from the... Okay, go.
Bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, boom. Okay.
Apart from when you saw Tomas 5 times, what is your favorite? If you have to choose one part as your favorite, I remember what you said last time, but if you have a different one.
Oh, the best part that really stood out to me was the one that I really liked with the video. Hold on, I can't see anything. So the part that I really liked the most was like when they're standing on top of like what it seems to be corpse or something.
Yeah, over here.
Like looks like a skeleton, like a big old skeleton.
Like it's more like hands on top of each other.
Yeah. Okay, so basically they're all standing on top of all those like, it's like when it's like you're saying, like you're standing on the top of the shoulders of those who came before you.
Yes.
They're all standing that part right there, and then so anyway, they're all standing there on top of those who've come before them.
Yes.
And they think they're unified as like a people, as a community, but little do they know their enemies are like shaking hands and making deals behind their back. So that was the part that really oh shoot, this is just they're just basically putting history in a visual context and with whatever they're saying. They're describing history basically. And so that was my favorite part of like the whole music video. I thought that they did that pretty well. Yeah,
and in that part, well, to give historical context, that's also one of the lines that stood out to me when I first listened to the song, is that line about, our enemies are shaking hands. It's a reference to the Treaty of Paris in 1898. Okay, hold on, back up. The Treaty of Paris was an agreement between Spain and the United States. This is like your 1 minute summary. The Treaty of Paris was an agreement between Spain and the United States to sell the Philippines from Spain to the US for $20 million in December of 1899. That's when it was signed. No, 1898, sorry. 1898. But 6 months before, in June of 1898, the Filipinos have already declared independence.
Okay.
So while so basically from this, they're talking about standing on the top of the shoulders of the heroes unburied. You know, all the people who laid their life, sacrificed their life for the freedom of the Filipino people from tyranny, from colonialism, from imperialism. They're standing on their shoulders. I feel like this is a reference to the Katipunan Revolution in 1896 to 98. That finally liberated the Philippines from the Spaniards. But for me, just to add context for people who do not know, the Katipunan was not the first uprising against Spain. There was 200, over 200 plus recorded, not even you don't even count the unrecorded ones. 200 plus revolts and uprisings throughout the Philippines that happened within 300 years of war, of colonialism in the Philippines. So there's 200 plus revolts, uprisings throughout the Philippines in different parts of the Philippines. And it was only in the 1890s when most of them united into this bigger movement called the Katipunan. And finally, they were able to wave the Philippine flag, which was one of the lines here is like, we were able to wave the 3 stars in the sun. So that's what I saw there. And again, that was happening. So it's kind of like a metaphor, like a visualization of what happened. Because in June 1898, the Filipinos declared independence, and they thought that the Americans were on our side to help us fight Spain. But little did we know, they were already talking about how to transfer the Philippines formally to the U.S. And what happened was that they even had to fake a battle between the Americans and the Spaniards to show Filipinos that
the Battle of Manila.
Yes.
Okay.
Good job. So to show Filipinos that, we are here to save you from the Spaniards.
Okay.
Right? To save you from the Spaniards. That they had to fake this battle. And the only casualty there was because Filipinos thought it was a real battle. So they started attacking the Spaniards too. But little did they know it was a scripted battle between the Americans and the Spaniards. So that's the whole deal, behind the scenes deal. So while we're celebrating our independence, our hard-earned, rightful independence from the Spaniards. Yes. Yeah. Behind the scenes, we didn't know that the colonizers,
Spain and the United States,
were already talking about how to
take
transfer.
over. Right.
Yes. And the thing is, for those who may not know, the Americans did not save the Filipinos from the Spaniards. In fact,
that's right.
In fact, the Filipino revolutionaries were able to liberate the majority of the Philippines before the Americans even showed up. The only city that the Spaniards held control over at this point was Manila, because it was the most fortified one. But it wasn't really control anymore because they were basically just trapped inside the walled city because they were surrounded by Filipino armies.
Right.
And then on the other side was the ocean, and the Americans came and they're like, hey, we're here to save you guys.
We're here to take over now.
Yeah, or they didn't say that. They're like, we're here to save you.
Right.
We're Superman. Dun, 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 dun. That's Indiana Jones song. But they came there to save Filipinos, save Filipinos, and pretend there was a battle, but they just want to take over.
Yeah, we defeated Spain, right?
Yeah, yes.
We defeated
and on
Spain,
paper,
and we're here to protect you guys.
Yes, and on paper, the Spaniards recognized defeat from the Americans.
And not the Filipinos.
Yes, that's why they had to fake a battle so that the Americans can show that they're saving Filipinos.
Right.
And then so that the Spaniards can show that they were defeated by white people, by fellow white people, and not brown people. They'd rather surrender to their fellow Westerners like the Americans than surrender to Asians like Filipinos.
Because what an embarrassment, right? To be, totally defeated and trapped by brown folks.
Yeah. Well,
who,
Yeah. We're different shades of brown. If you haven't noticed.
Yeah, but I guess maybe even the mindset that Filipinos are
an inferior race.
Right, an inferior race, and instead of losing to them, we would rather lose to the Americans versus to.
And if you think about it, the Spaniards are very hardcore Catholic. They would fight wars against Protestants. The Americans are Protestants, so they would rather surrender to Protestants just because they're white than surrender to their fellow Catholics just because they're brown.
Dang.
There's a lot of layers into this, but that's what
there is. That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, see, even that part I didn't know. So even just this whole aspect of the religion piece, there are definitely layers to it.
Yes, and for the longest time, what do you call this? The Catholic Church in the Philippines was controlled by Spaniards for 300 years. Everything was controlled by the Spaniards. It was only in the 1800s, the late 1800s, like 1890s, 1880s, something like that, that Filipinos, or 1860s, I forgot the exact year. The Gombursa, for those who may not know, the Majoha. That's funny for Filipinos. Anyways, the Gonburza, the priests who fought for it, there's a movement amongst Filipino priests to give more rights to Filipino priests within the church, because all the decisions were made by white priests. And Filipino priests were just really at the bottom of the totem pole, even though they're more competent than some of the white priests. They were basically at the bottom, and they fought hard so that the Catholic Church would recognize Filipino priests equal to the white priests, the Spanish priests. And there was a long struggle, and there was a lot of revolutionary priests too, religious people who fought for rights and freedom of the Filipinos. And one of them is to give a shout out to my ancestor, Salustiano Araullo. He was a priest. He was among those people. He actually was the one, not to brag, but just being proud of my ancestor. One of my great grandfather's brother, Salustiano Araullo, was a priest who fought for the rights of the Filipino priests in the Philippines. And he was actually, there's two of them. The other one is Jose Chanco and Salustiano Araullo. There are two Filipino priests who were sent to Rome to meet with the Pope to plead the case of the Filipinos. Like, hey, we're the majority of the priests in the Philippines, but we don't have rights. We don't have control about our own parishes. We don't have, give us the same rights you give to other priests. We went to the same missionary schools. And by this time, Filipinos have gone to the best missionary schools, convents. There were some of the best monks in the world, in the Christian Catholic world. Yet, they don't get the same respect as a white priest. So that's all they're asking. Trust and respect.
That's
that
right.
we have the experience.
They said RESPECT.
Yes. So that's what one of my ancestors did. But sadly, the Pope said no.
Pope, why'd you do that? Sorry. Okay, maybe
not the current Pope. The Pope back in the 1800s. But then and then they went back to the Philippines, and then that's how we now have the Philippine Independent Church, the Iglesia Filipina Independiente, IFI. That's how it started, because those are the priests that were like, okay, we're not gonna, if they don't want to listen to us, we'll start our own church. But anyways, that's a sidetrack that was not mentioned in this video, but it reminded me of this whole we talk about religion, revolution, and stuff.
Right.
So what's next?
So anyway, I mean, even just that, it's like showing that it's a game of divide and conquer. I mean, even till this day, there are definitely lots of ways where it feels like, actually there are so many issues that divides the community, but actually there's a lot of stuff that unites the community too. And we should really think about ways where people can come together more often. Because we all want the same thing. We want basically to be able to live our life in a way where it's like we don't have to bust our ass off in order to survive. We want access to water, clean water, food, everything, right? But really just a message of coming together. I mean, that's kind of what my takeaway or the takeaway message that I got of coming together and working together to get the same thing, the things that we want.
Well, since you're talking about that, the title of the song is Dagundong, which is the sound of the beat of the drums. I'm not sure how they translated it in the lyrics. Let's see. But rumble. But they translated it as rumble. The beat of the drums. That's the meaning. Because there's no direct translation of what Dagundong is. But it's literally the sound of the beat of the drum. And for me, I think it's the message that you were talking about. The message of the song is rallying up the younger generation, basically, because that's their audience. Rallying up the younger generation to stand up in unity and take action to fight for the freedom of the people.
Right.
And just visually, or when they're talking about what I imagined when I first heard the song before the music video, and I listened to it, the whole beat of the drum, all that.
Did it rally you up?
In a way, yes. So for me, it reminded me of this oral traditions from our ancestors, from our elders, talking about how back then, and I'm talking about the Kapampangan warriors, the Precolonial Luzones warriors back then, who fought wars across Southeast Asia, by the way. Won battles here and there. Yes, for those who may not know, many of our ancestors, like the Kapampangans, the Luzones people, they fought wars across Southeast Asia. They helped kingdoms in Cambodia fight Thai invaders. In another year, they helped Thai cities, Ayutthaya, which is the capital of Thailand back then, or Siam. They saved Ayutthaya from invading Burmese people from Myanmar. So they're involved in a lot of wars. But anyways, from our elders, because a lot of this have been lost. And they talked about that in the song, things, our traditions have been lost, our stories, our histories have been lost. And for me, the whole drum thing, it reminded me of how, according to our elders, according to our culture bearers, our elder scholars, our ancestors, that back then, pre-colonially, when they fought a war, they don't just attack. At least I'm speaking on the Kapampangan side, because there's 100 plus ethnicities in the Philippines. So, you know, the ancestors of the Kapampangan back then, or who we now call sometimes Luzones because of the records. How do I describe this? Basically, how the elders describe it is that they would beat the drum as they approach from the horizon of the ocean. So whatever time of day it is, it's probably usually like in the dawn, you know, in the early morning, where they start. Imagine if you're a small village by the coast, and then you start hearing this drum beat, you know, from the ocean, from hundreds of boats, hundreds of dozens and dozens of warships coming to you. It's to terrify the enemies. You know, they don't just show up and fight. Because the thing is, with Southeast Asian warfare, it's not the same as European warfare, where you're all lined up and you wait for this go signal to fight. It's so structured. You know,
they're like, okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
So that's what the ancestors told or passed down to us, is that they would, you know, use the beat of the drums and the gongs, you know, to hella gongs, you know, on the ships. That's why on the battleship, the warships, the front, there's always like a drummer, or sometimes there's even like what do you call this? Like a song, just kidding, like an enchantress, a lady or somebody who chants. Yeah, and they actually did this in one of the shows, the drama, the telenovela, the soap opera, Amaya. They had that scene where someone was chanting while they're approaching the island they're invading. So similar. You know, they would beat the drum, but mostly they beat the drum so that they would scare the village that was still sleeping.
I mean, I would wake up if if I heard that.
So if you think about it, it's not even about, you know, they're so confident that they're going to win that battle that they don't need to surprise them. Unlike some colonizers who surprise people.
Or put on mock battles.
Yes. They're so confident. Our ancestors were so confident that they would just show up, beat the drum, scare the shit out of them, and attack.
Right. They're also announcing themselves, right? It's like, look, we're here and we're about to mess some things up.
Yes. Well, I guess this brings me to another part of the song that really caught me when I was listening to it. Was the part where they talk about, like, we may not be able to equal them, match them in terms of the numbers of our soldiers, but we can if we surround them, you know, then we can overwhelm them and you know, basically win, and which is actually a tactic. Back in the 1600s, when the Dutch tried to take the Philippines from the Spaniards, here's another 1 minute 101. In the 1600s, there was an 80-year war between the Spaniards and the Dutch. The Dutch were formerly colonies of Spain that broke away, and they wanted to piss off Spain by invading the other colonies of Spain. And one of them was the Philippines, because it was next to Indonesia, which was a Dutch colony. Anyways, in the 1600s, the Dutch tried many times to conquer the Philippines, take it away from Spain. But every time they tried, they get defeated by the Spaniards. On paper, it's the Spaniards. But if you ask the Dutch, look at Dutch records, they actually mention it wasn't the Spaniards for reals that defeated them. It was the Kapampangan. Well, the Spaniards do recognize the Kapampangans were part of the battle. But when it comes to the victory, they just credit Our Lady, the Virgin Mary, the Lady of the Rosary. So they credit Jesus' mom. You know, praying to her saved the Philippines from the Dutch, right? That's why it's the festival in my hometown in Angeles, La Naval, and it's a festival in Manila too. That's why it's called La Naval, even though people are confused, like, oh, this particular version of the Virgin Mary is called the Holy Rosary, or like the Lady, Our Lady of the Holy Rosary. But somehow in Spanish, we call her Nuestra Señora de la Somehow in Spanish, we call her Nuestra Señora de la Naval, which means Our Lady of the Navy. Because they prayed to her, prayed the rosary, so that the Dutch would be defeated, and they defeat the Dutch. But anyways, long story short, the victory was credited to the Spaniards and the Virgin Mary. Well, technically, the Kapampangans were fighting under the Spanish flag, but it wasn't the Spanish galleons that defeated the Dutch galleons. According to both oral traditions and records outside Spain, it was actually the Kapampangan Navy. So unknown to many, after the Philippines was colonized in the 1500s, late 1500s, throughout the 1600s, the Kapampangans were still allowed to keep their warships, their trading ships. So they still had, in effect, a navy, you know, compared to other places, even though they're already like formally colonized by Spain. So whenever the Spaniards need their help, then the Kapampangans would bring out their ships. Well, without war, they used it to trade with Japan, with other places like Champa. But during the war, they would actually use the same ship, and plus the warships are hiding somewhere, being kept safe. You know, they would bring it out to fight the Dutch for the Spaniards. Well, to be fair, people are gonna be like, why are Kapampangans fighting for the Spaniards against another white people.
Yeah.
You know, they're the same colonizers. That's in hindsight.
Yeah.
Back then, they preferred the devil they know, the Spaniards, against the Dutch. You know, plus there's the whole religion thing. The Dutch are Protestants, the Spaniards Catholics, the Kapampangas during this time were Catholics. So for them, there's this also this fear mongering among the Spaniards, like the Protestants are not really Christians. You know, so you should fight them.
Right.
So, anyways, that's a long, complicated thing that I have a video back like maybe 5 years ago now that I made that I need to update.
Yes.
But anyways, they had that. So going back to the song, you know, the surrounding thing, that was the Kapampangan tactic that defeated the Dutch. Kapampangans have traditionally been, what do you call this? Naughty people. We like to tease people. You know, people often think that I had a group of friends in college in SoCal where, you know, we're diverse from different parts of the Philippines, but whenever the Kapampangas talk, they thought we're fighting.
Oh yeah.
You know, because and sometimes we would actually like tease each other, like say mean things to each other, but we don't mean it. You know, it's just how our culture is. But for some, it might be seen as offensive. But anyways, Kapampangan people love to tease other people. So what they did during this war, the tactic was that they would bother and annoy the fuck out of a Dutch ship. So one small boat, like what do you call this? Viray is actually the traditional boat. It's not really small, but smaller than the other warships. The smaller warship called Viray, they would sail, piss off the Dutch ship, and then make them chase them. So the Dutch would now be chasing the small Viray to a place where other Virays would come out surrounding it. So even though the Dutch had superior firepower than the Kapampangan smaller warships, they were able to piss them off and lose their, you know, logic. Piss them off, lure them to somewhere where the ships would come out, the other ships smaller ship, and surround the bigger ship and just bombard the shit out of them. And we had cannons too. These are traditional pre-colonial cannons too, not the Western cannons. The lantakas, the smaller cannons. So they would basically like rain fire on the Dutch ship until they could no longer see anything because everything's on fire and smoky. And then they're not done. One of the Kapampangan Virays, or several of them, would come close to the Dutch ship, put a bridge, and climb the ship and finish it off. So that's what the tactic was. And if you're Kapampangan and your last name is Sampang, that's the word that refers to that tactic of like putting a bridge on the other ship and climbing it. Because in Kapampangan, Sampangan me. So for me, that this song reminded me of that tactic that our ancestors had before, you know, back in pre-colonially and then during the early colonial period, that we had this tactic that I don't think people know about anymore.
But the message is that from the video, what did they say again? They say that we can't match them
in terms of the numbers of their soldiers.
Right,
but we can surround them and scare the shit out of them and win. You know, overwhelm them basically, which was what the Kapampangas did back then. Yeah.
Another history in, you know, this awesome video.
And again, since we're talking about that part of the song, this might be a long video, but I guess it's fine because people requested this video precisely because of my tidbits of history. Another part of this song where, you know, we cannot match them. You're the one who actually pointed it out.
What?
How they're all clad in metal.
Oh, right. Yes, I remember. So from the first time we had watched it, they had said something about like them using. I mean, the other soldiers, the invaders, the colonizers, having metal shields, and us taking out our like arrows and swords to like fight them. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm sure they had arrows and swords and stuff like that too. But I'm like, well, I guess demystifying and debunking that myth too of like I mean, not we, because I'm not Filipino. that like your people basically had more advanced weaponry and like
than we know
than we think. So I
guess it's, you know, because in the Philippines there's this, I'm not sure if you're familiar with David and Goliath, so there's this tendency for us to always paint Philippine history as a David and Goliath, not in the bad way, you know, not intentionally in a bad way, but there's this tendency to paint Filipino culture or Philippine history against the colonizers as a David and Goliath story, because it is. You know, we're a smaller country compared to the Spanish Empire and the American Empire, and we fought for our freedom. In a bigger picture, it makes sense, but sometimes we get too focused on that David and Goliath story, that we depict our ancestors as barely wearing anything, as just having javelins, spears, knives, arrows against for the Spaniards. They're clad in their metal armor and their guns, their cannons, you know. visually it's like poetic and
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
and but if you want to be accurate in terms of Philippine history, our ancestors were not naked when they were fighting. They weren't just wearing some of them did, but it doesn't mean that they didn't have their own armor.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they, not that they didn't have advanced weapons. In fact, they did. We had firearms. We had firepower before the Spaniards came to the Philippines. In fact, according to the Portuguese, we were selling gunpowder and other firearms in different parts of Asia.
Yeah.
There's even a record of a giant-ass cannon in China that has an engraving or something that said that it came from the Kingdom of Luzon. So we were even selling cannons to the country, the people that invented cannons.
Right. So I guess you can't say that we never had.
Yes. Firearms.
You guys
yes,
never
yes,
had.
yes.
I'm like, gosh, we never had it. It's because we're still one.
Yes, we're
so
Southeast
one.
Asians.
We're Southeast Asian. We relate.
Yeah. But yeah, there's this misconception that our ancestors did not have their own advanced weaponry. It may not be the same exact level as the Spaniards or the Americans later on, but it doesn't mean that we didn't have it. We had our own cannons called lantakas, smaller handled cannons, but they're actually more, what do you call this? Movable, agile.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, actually, this is the thing. The bigger Spanish ships or European ships their cannons are static. The ship had to move. The whole ship had to move around so that the cannon would face a different direction.
No wonder I see those old movies and stuff, especially of European.
Yeah.
And they take forever to shoot.
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
While the smaller sorry, go ahead.
Because I've seen it. I've seen it in so many movies. They're like, okay, turn the ship around. And it's like, dun, 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 dun. It's like they take forever to use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although those cannons have far ranges.
Yeah.
The Southeast Asian ones, the lantakas, for example, are shorter, smaller. They can even be held by hand, but they're quick to move around.
Yeah.
Actually, another term for it is like a swiveling cannon, because you're facing this way. Some of the enemies on that side, you don't need to move the ship. They just move it to face the other way. It has a shorter range in terms of firepower, but it can still overwhelm, and it's quicker to shoot again, as opposed to the bigger cannons where you have to put the ball, light the match, and do something like this, and blow something.
Load, right?
Yeah.
Load the, what is it? The dynamite,
the
the powder.
the gunpowder, the black powder. Yeah. So yes.
Warm it up.
So we had our own smaller, but they were still effective especially in terms of Southeast Asian warfare.
Yeah.
So we did have our own firearms centuries before the Spaniards showed up at our doorstep to introduce firearms.
Okay, because I'm looking at your notes. Look at his notes.
There's nothing on my notes.
I was like, what do you have on your notes? It's literally nothing. Why are you holding on to this if there's no notes on there?
I don't know. I just want to hold something.
You cracked me up. I was like, what? Like, let me see. What notes do you have? And there's nothing here.
Yes.
That's hilarious. Okay, here you go. If that makes you feel more comfortable, then yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, back to the armors and the firearms. So we talked about the firearms, even the armors. We had armors.
Okay, yeah.
Our ancestors before colonialism had their own armors.
Yeah.
There's different types of armors. I'm not gonna go too much into detail. Some of them are made with carabao shells.
Carabao shells.
Yeah, so it's not shells. I don't know why I said shells, but I meant like carabao horns, the water buffalo horns. They use it to
I guess I was like,
create-
where did they get the shells from? Where did they get the shells from?
Yes.
Okay, so carabao horns.
Yes, carabao
Okay.
horns. They would use it as part of the armor. Their armors are made of metal, like brass. So there's different types of armors in pre-colonial Philippines and early colonial Philippines that Filipinos have forgotten, because whenever they depict ancient Filipinos, it's just wearing the loincloth.
Yeah.
Which is not bad, because some, we do wear those things,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that it's the only thing we wear.
Right.
And actually back then it was much colder in the climate, so imagine if that's all you're wearing.
Yeah.
Global warming is real, and you can see it on record.
Yeah.
But anyways, we did have our own armors. In fact, one thing I want to share here is that when Lapu-Lapu in the Battle of Mactan in 1521, when his army defeated Magellan and his army, one thing that the Spaniards actually noted was how impressed they were, how mind-blown they were, that the indigenous Visayan warriors of Mactan had shields made of wood, hardwood.
Right.
But somehow, that shield made of hardwood can deflect firepower, bullets from their guns. arrows.
Right.
Well, the kids, you can deflect bullets. You can deflect arrows. So somehow,
If it passed the bullet test,
Yes.
and it passed the arrow test.
but yeah, that's what they were so impressed with. Like, they had shields that could deflect all the might of the Spanish weapons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which we know was mind blowing to them, because again, you would think that the more advanced a culture is, they would use metal,
And not wood.
not wood,
Right.
because wood can easily burn. But somehow our ancestors, like the ones in the Visayas in this Battle of Mactan, had technology that makes wood fireproof and strong enough to deflect firepower from the invaders. Which tells us a lot of
Right,
things. That one, they have an advanced technology, even though it's
Right,
wood, because
right.
sometimes people judge a civilization by looking at like, oh, do they have stone structures?
Yeah,
Just wood,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not advanced enough.
Right.
Do they have
right.
metal weapons? Just wood, that's not advanced enough. But
Right.
the truth is,
Yeah.
you should measure it by what the technology they could create given the resources they had.
Right.
And in this case, they were able to do tropical woods,
Yeah,
these
yeah.
trees in the tropics, into
Yeah.
something that could deflect European
I wonder
firepower.
what was the...
I don't know. That's like a technology that has been lost.
Yeah.
So even if our ancestors also had wooden forts,
Yeah.
which they also had stone forts, literally a city in Mindanao is called Stone Fort, Cotabato. We had advanced technology. Our ancestors had advanced technology to deflect invaders.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so I guess it really kind of just, again, debunks the myth of Filipinos, brown people, but basically any sort of third world countries
Yeah.
being like really like
Weaker. That's why they lost,
barbaric, savages, whatever, undeveloped.
Yes.
You're right.
Yes. So yeah. Anyways, that's colonialism for you. And the colonial miseducation of our people.
That's right. So
Okay.
let the beat of the drums wake you up.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's all I can say. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's also what I appreciate most about Alamat is that
Yeah.
they use their art, they use their creativity to really raise awareness to the younger Filipinos,
Yeah.
younger audiences out there, not just Filipinos, because they have fans all over the world.
Right.
To raise awareness in the younger generation that we were not savages,
Right.
that we had our own culture, we had a history that could be dark at some point, at some part, but it could also be enlightening, it could also
Right.
be empowering.
Right.
And then they really use their creativity to empower the younger generation to dig deeper.
Right.
And I'm not expecting them to be actually perfect when it comes to messaging, delivering
Yeah,
these messages,
yeah.
because nobody's perfect. Not even all
Right.
historians are perfect.
Right.
I don't know everything. I
Right.
may know a lot of things. I may not need notes, but it doesn't mean that I know everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're from a different culture in the Philippines, if you're from the Ifugao community, Indigenous Ifugao,
Yeah.
if you're Indigenous Lumad, if you're from Sulu, from Maguindanao, and you want to share something that you saw in this video,
Yeah,
let us
yeah.
know in the comments below. Because again, I can only speak from my own research
Right,
as a
right.
historian and my own background as a Kapampangan Tagalog culture bearer.
Anyway, okay, so the other stuff, I mean, we've been kind of jumping around.
Yeah.
But I guess the other thing was they also had mentioned something about like seeing ships in the sea, in the
Yeah,
horizon, and like the ships carrying pestilence.
Yes,
First
yeah.
of all, I guess I'm sure you guys have experience with that.
Yes.
You guys have experience with that. And yeah, maybe if we can break that down of like, do you see them out, like, or if they were referring to specific people, invaders, or if it's referring to a specific like time and era. But then also like, I'm really happy that they had mentioned, it's like, oh, you see these ships out there, like you would think they were bringing good stuff and like all these trade and things like that, but they're actually carrying pestilence. Like, so that was something that stood out to me.
There's a lot, or I guess for this video, for this song, they were referring probably to the Spaniards when they invaded the Philippines, because they were ships out in the ocean coming by carrying pestilence. And the pestilence is basically a plague, and that's exactly what they did.
Right.
That's part of why the Spaniards were able to conquer different empires in Central America, South
Right,
America, is
right.
because they carried diseases that they
Right.
were immune, or they're not immune to, so the
Got
disease
a
helped
lot
them.
of
Yeah.
right.
And the thing is, it also somewhat on a smaller scale happened in the Philippines too. They carried pestilence in the Philippines. But anyways, I think it was referring to that because back then, if you know Southeast Asian history, Southeast Asia was the center of the global trade before colonialism. Everybody came to Southeast Asia, passed through Southeast Asia to trade. That's why there's a lot of kingdoms in Southeast Asia that were thriving. Even though they're small, they're wealthy and thriving because they were the center of trade, especially the most coveted of all in the European world, the spice trade, and of course gold and other things. But basically, I guess what they're trying to say is that, like what you said, we see the ships coming.
Yeah.
Usually when ships approach Manila Bay, for example, it's traders. Our ancestors would welcome traders. They were not racist.
Yeah.
They actually welcomed traders. There's actually communities of different, like Chinese communities, Japanese communities in Manila before colonialism because they were there as traders. There's actually, like for example, my ancestor, the last king of Luzon, Raja Matanda, he had part of his crew, his ship crew, back when he was younger, when he was just a prince in 1521. He had a crew who can speak Spanish. One of his slaves spoke Spanish. That points to the fact that places like Manila, Malacca, Brunei were cosmopolitan. That there were already foreign Westerners in Manila, or like at least people who could speak Western languages in Manila 50 years before the Spaniards conquered Manila. I guess I'll just talk about that. I wasn't planning on talking about that. But in 1521, the Spaniards encountered the Prince of Luzon and abducted him and stuff, whatever. And then you can watch a whole video about it. They freed him, and then 50 years later, when they came back to Manila, that was the old king they met. So there's this misconception that the old king of Manila welcomed the Spaniards because he was freed 50 years ago after being kidnapped. As a gesture of friendship, like, oh, the Spaniards are my friends. They freed me from themselves, because the Spaniards held him for ransom. The Spaniards wanted to hold him for ransom because they know he was a prince. They just didn't realize that he's not just a prince. He's the grandson of the Sultan of Brunei, who during this time was the most powerful king in Southeast Asia. And nobody wanted to mess with Brunei during this time. And it's actually a trio: Brunei, Sulu, and Luzon. There's like a trio happening there. Luzon monopolized the trade with China. Brunei monopolized the trade on the other side, and towards Malacca, and then Sulu had control on the axis towards.
Wait, can you draw it for us? Let's put something on the notes. Let's
use some mark.
Let's draw it. I'm a visual learner, so I need
Well, I can draw the map if you want.
Yeah.
But I'll just do a star.
Yeah, do a
star. So this is Luzon. This is Brunei. This is Sulu.
Okay.
So from here is trade with China. So Luzon controlled that. And from here is the trade with Malacca, which was the center of Southeast Asian trade, the Straits of Malacca. So anything coming from the Middle East, Europe, going to Southeast Asia was controlled by Malacca. And from Malacca, it was controlled by Brunei. You know what I'm saying? And over here is Sulu. And towards here is the access to the Spice Islands where you can actually get the spices. So these three intermarried each other. So the royal families of Brunei, Sulu, and Luzon
keep the power tight right there in the
actually related
zone.
Yes. So they monopolized this trade, this trade here, trade there, trade there, and their own, naval power, basically control this part of Southeast Asia that nobody want to mess with them.
Right.
So when the Europeans, when Magellan's crew, after Magellan died, found my ancestor, abducted him, they thought he was a normal prince. They wanted to hold him for ransom.
A regular prince.
Yes.
Yeah.
They want to hold him for ransom for a few pounds of gold or whatever resources they needed because they were starving. They were starving. If not,
why did you whisper it like that?
Because they were really starving. First they were starving when the Visayans found them, and they fucked over the Visayans, and they left the Visayas because the Visayas were like, "We're gonna kill you now."
Yeah.
So they left. They left in a hurry, and they were again lost. This is so easy for Southeast Asians to sail, but the Spaniards back then, the crew, Magellan's crew, were lost, like going in circles. They don't know where they're going. And at one point, they reached Brunei, or like one of the Brunei territories, and the Sultan allowed his people to feed them. And then when they found the prince, they thought it was a normal prince that they were going to hold for ransom, make money, and then leave, right?
Yeah.
But then they realized that prince is the grandson of the Sultan of Brunei and also the admiral of the navy that controlled these three kingdoms.
Yeah.
So when they found out, they released him.
I mean, imagine capturing Queen Elizabeth when she was like, 16?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That's how important she was. That's how important he was, but they didn't know that.
Yeah, so when they found out, they released him. But the official story from a Western perspective was that he bribed them. Here's a few pieces of gold. But my thing is that on record, if he actually bribed them, even if he gave them a bribe, they still returned everything else. So why would you return everything you already stole if you weren't scared of his grandpa?
Right.
So that was the whole thing.
That when they had found out,
Yes.
then they returned everything
Yes.
because they're like...
They're scared of the Sultan of Brunei. And at the same time, before this, the Sultan of Brunei fed them in one of their ports, you know, because they were starving.
Right.
So in gratitude to the kindness of the Sultan of Brunei beforehand, and in fear of his retaliation for kidnapping his favorite grandson, you know, they release him for, you know, but the official story is that he bribed them to be free.
To be released,
Yes. But then again, if he bribed them, then why would they return everything else? The ship, the gold, the jewelries, the cannons.
Yeah, they know they messed up.
Yes. But here's the thing. The Southeast Asians were still actually friendly. My ancestor, what he did was actually give them his Spanish-speaking navigator to help them so that
they didn't get lost on the way home.
Because they were lost in Southeast Asia. So he's like, okay, well, to make your way home, or first to make your way to the Moluccas, where the Spice Islands, and then eventually back to Spain, here's one of my navigators. I just freed him from slavery. He's no longer a slave. He's now a free navigator who can speak to you in Spanish and guide your way back to the Moluccas and back to Spain. He was generous. Fun fact, this navigator too is not from the Philippines. He's actually from Indonesia, from Makassar. So you see how interconnected Southeast Asia was back then, before colonialism, and suddenly we're the savages.
Right.
But anyways, that happened. And then 50 years later, they came back to Manila to invade Manila or something like that. They met the king. And then now the common misconception was that, oh, I bribed him for my freedom. They gave me my freedom 50 years ago. So I let them have my city. I'm not going to fight. That's the misconception about this king. But if you look at the records, it was more of a negotiation. What are you here for? Are you here to trade? And since, you know, I've befriended the Spaniards 50 years earlier. He gave them a courtesy, like, oh, friends, come trade. And the thing is, in fact, the Spaniards claim we are not here to invade Luzon. We are here to trade in Manila, to be part of the trade, where the Chinese are there, the Japanese are there, outer Southeast Asians are there.
We want to be in the center of trade. And
they asked if they can settle in some parts of Manila. And of course, no, this is a common thing in Manila. It's nothing new. The Portuguese were there before the Spaniards. And then hundreds of years before, the Arabs were there. The Indians were there, you know. So they're like, okay, well, they're probably like, find a spot. You know, it's a growing city, but find a spot. And then there's just a whole misunderstanding. And of course, escalating shit that turned into a whole battle that burned down the city. But the common misconception was that the old king was treated nicely by the Spaniards. So 50 years later, he's like, have my city, have my capital, but which wasn't true. But anyways, that's a tangent.
Pestilence, ships carrying pestilence.
Yes. So they were welcoming the ships because, you know, they were open for trade, basically.
Right.
The same thing happened when first the Spaniards, and then the Dutch in the 1600s. Spaniards in the 1500s, the Dutch in the 1600s, and then the British in the 1700s. So everybody was trying to take away the Philippines from Spain. And then in the 1800s, every century there's a new player trying to take the Philippines. So again, 1500s the Spaniards.
I mean, that's another question for another time. But why also, right, for Filipinos to ask themselves, like, why is it that so many people were trying, so many countries trying to invade the Philippines?
Yes, because the thing is, growing up, because of the colonial mentality, because of miseducation, we were always taught that we're not as important as other countries. But then again, if we're not as important, then why were the Spaniards there in the 1500s? Why did the Dutch come in the 1600s? Why did the British try to take over the Philippines in the 1700s? Why did the Americans did the same thing in the 1800s? Why did the Japanese came in the 1940s?
Right.
And why is China now taking over parts of our islands?
Oh, shoot.
So every century there's a new ships on the horizon with pestilence coming.
Oh, shoot. Hey, Alamat might be onto something.
That happened. Which actually, the China one is actually one of the things I visualized when I first heard the song before I saw the music video. Is that there's, apart from the Precolonial one, I was thinking like, oh, there's ships on the horizon. And right now, there's a whole the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea debate. Who owns it? I don't want to get too much into this because they're still fighting over it in international courts and international law and international relations. We've been talking for over an hour now, so but we didn't talk a lot. So I guess one more thing that I want to mention is, I guess visually, I like the part where the head came off. That was fun.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of like visual with a deeper meaning, I would say my favorite part would be the tattoos. At towards the end, where you see these bodies and suddenly you see tattoos crawling and appearing on their skin. Because one thing I want to mention to a lot of Filipinos is that we're from nowadays we're familiar that Filipino culture or like our ancestors had tattoos.
Right.
Like maybe when I was a kid, not much people knew about it, but now it's everywhere. In fact, Miss Universe Philippines, her gown is inspired by these tattoos. Nowadays, we're familiar with it. Nowadays, Filipino Americans, even foreigners would fly to the Philippines,
And
get the
their
tattoos, and
yeah.
the traditional tattoo
Right.
artists or culture bearers. But my thing is, in this video, what they showed was that towards the end of the video, after fighting for freedom, after fighting for our people, the tattoos started appearing on their bodies. Because back then, traditionally, tattoos were earned. You do not pay for your tattoo. You do not choose your own design. Your tattoo is earned by fighting in battle, by being a warrior.
Yeah.
In different cultures, there's some different ways to do to also get it without killing somebody. But usually, tattoos also shows how much people you killed, how many people you killed, how many battles you fought. You know, so it's all about fighting for your people and valor. You know, and bravery, heroism. You know, these are all the symbols of the tattoos. Not because nowadays, like, I want to get a tattoo, I'll just go to a tattoo shop.
Yeah.
So back then, it had a deeper meaning.
Yeah.
And every pattern had a specific meaning that's specific to the person that's getting it.
It's like something that's like really earned and not just because you want
That's
it.
just because, you know, that's why it's weird when sometimes all these tourists would come to the indigenous tattoo artists and they would demand, I want this pattern.
Right.
That's a no-no. You know, because they have the culture is that you get the pattern we give you based on your merits. So that part of the video I really love because, you know, they show that they fought for the freedom of our people, and then towards the end, these bodies started having tattoos because they earned the tattoos after fighting for our people. Yes.
We didn't see them in the beginning, right?
Yes, we did it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing is that I want to also mention for our viewers, if I'm on focus, is that even though we had tattoos in the pre-colonial traditions and the indigenous traditions of the Philippines, I want to point to the fact that not everybody had it. So on record, we have the Visayans. They were called the Pintados by the Spaniards, the painted ones because they had tattoos. And not even all Visayans. There's a specific group of the Visayans that had tattoos. The Ifugao people, they had tattoos. So there's different cultures in the Philippines that had tattoos, but not everybody had it.
Right.
So just want to clarify that the Philippines is not just one monolithic ethnic group. There's over 100, there's 187 languages and over 100, you know, ethnic groups. And each ethnic group had their own specific culture. Some of them do have tattoos, some of them don't. Some of them had it but lost it, like the Kapampangan and the Tagalog. We have words for it, like batik. And in fact, for someone who is considered an expert in both Tagalog or Kapampangan, you know, someone who is an expert, someone who has proven himself or themselves in whatever field they're in, not just warfare, they're called batikan. So they're called like a great, you know, multi-awarded director, internationally acclaimed director, for example, batikang director. Or like a multi-awarded actor, batikang actor, batikang actress, you know. Because batikan means you're excelled in your field. You know, and you were awarded. You're a multi-awarded person, recognized everywhere for your expertise in your field. Someday I would like to be a batikang historian or something, you know. But batikan in Tagalog and Kapampangan comes from the same word, batik, which is the same root word for tattoo. So in the Visayas, it's batikan. Or not, I'm not sure if I said it right, but batik, you know. And it has the same root as batik. The art of like the dyeing of the garment.
Right.
Because it comes from the same traditions.
Right.
So basically, Kapampangan and Tagalog had it in the past. But somewhere down the road, hundreds of years ago, hundreds of years before the Spaniards came, we've lost it. Or we stopped practicing it.
Right.
Some say it could be because many of the Luzones, which is the ancestors of the Kapampangas, have adopted Islam. So some say that because of that, it was looked down upon to have tattoos, so they stopped practicing it. But you know, the Visayans never converted to Islam, so they still had tattoos. The Ifugaos never converted to Islam, so they still had tattoos. So, but then when they converted to Christianity, the Visayans lost their tattoos because it's the same in Christianity. It's forbidden to have tattoos. So that's a little short history of tattoos in the Republic of the Philippines, the islands we now call the Philippines.
I mean, with Southeast Asia, there's so much shared like history and culture and like traditions as well. Because I mean, like in Laos and Thailand, we do that too in
Tattoos
terms of
or batik?
not tattoos, but batik, like the dyed fabric. That's something that you'll commonly see, and especially like Hmong people, we have our batik clothing, and that's something that is commonly practiced and it's still practiced. But also because, I mean, again, who knows, right? Maybe either through trade, through something that we learned about. We learned about batik, and we're still practicing that. But again, I guess there hasn't been a reason where we've lost it. I think the only reason why we are losing it and are losing it a lot more is because, of course, everything's modern fashion, modern technology, everything's machine made, printed. But when you go back to like, I mean, I've seen a lot of my friends who have gone back to like Laos or like even in parts of Vietnam where you see a Hmong community who are still practicing batik, right? And that's really cool. That's like
I think it is true trade because the word batik itself is actually indigenous word in the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. So it's probably true trade that it ended up in Laos, in Vietnam, Thailand. But so that's a lot of things that we talked about. And again, overall, any last words, I guess, before, because it's over an hour now. It's almost 2 hours that we're talking.
I mean, overall, just like, I would say really good job. I mean, it doesn't hurt that they're good looking either, you know, to really deliver their message. But overall, like, really good job. I mean, I couldn't have asked for either a better music video or like, you know, a better way to deliver the actual message of the video. So props to Alamat.
And you talked about the first recording of this video last week. You talked about how the message of the song to inspire and empower the younger generation.
I mean, again, it's really, I think I mentioned it like in the beginning too, is the overall takeaway message is to really, hopefully this message and this song is going to like rally and wake people up, especially the younger generation, because there's lots of things that like you can still learn, and like, and there's still a lot of stuff happening today that you can still learn about, but also like you can really learn from our past too, right? So using this like song as a sort of a wake-up call to get you interested in history, to get you interested in culture, and then figure out why you know things have happened the way that it has, and also like learn how you can be a change and be a part of that change, right? Because again, everybody wants the same things, you know, but we're all really working really hard towards that vision of just being free, right? Not having to be under control of anybody else, not being like forced to do things that we're not, you know, that we don't want to do, right? So again, it's a message of empowerment, and hopefully the beat of their drums will really wake you up to take on the action and to take on like the issues in our communities right now to make a better future for for our kids, our, you know, whatever you want to say, like legacy, your children, whatever in the future.
And that's I agree 100%. But I do want to add that, you know, on top of that, I want to add that apart from freedom, justice is the more important thing. And freedom for me is not nothing if there's no justice that comes with it. But anyways, what I'm trying to say too is that, like what you said, hopefully this beat of the drum would empower and inspire the younger generation. For me, since their primary target are Filipino younglings, you know, I hope that these type of songs, especially this song and other songs from Alamat, from SB19, am I allowed to say that, or Mahalima, you know, from our younger artists today. I hope their songs could actually, I see it actually online, but I hope that they would take the beat of these drums, the beat of this music, to be inspired, to be empowered, to dig deeper about our culture and be proud of our roots. But for me, pride is also not just a one-sided thing. You know, be proud of our roots, not just because like, oh, we had gold, we had all these weapons, we are such an amazing people, better than other people. No. For me, pride about our roots should also include learning from what happened to us, learning about the injustices that our people went through. Because without those struggles, we would not be where we are today. Learning how our ancestors, like Bonifacio, Rizal, Lapu-Lapu, all these warriors back then who fought for our people's freedom, learning from what they fought for, why they fought for our freedom, you know, and apply that to the modern day, because we're not totally free. And we have our own set of issues and realities that we face today. And I hope the younger generation, because they do have the immense power, the immense energy as younger than us, you know, to carry forward the struggle for freedom, for justice, and peace in our communities. So, and not just in the Philippines, because our ancestors were not limited by our hometowns. You know,
there's power in numbers, and I think that, I mean, that's something I guess we really, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that we were youth.
It wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago, but I think there's such a powerful like movement when young people really come together and like use their voices to make change.
Yes.
Because sometimes it's like you think of yourself as one person, you can't make a change. But when you all come together, like that's even more powerful. And then especially students today, gosh, like students have so much power. Like especially when they're together and when they're united, like they really can bring a lot of good change when they come together. And so I guess that's my message to all the students watching too, is that like, you know, maybe it's time to also like build your network of friends, build your connection of friends within your school, but also outside of your schools, right? Like there's you all probably have like so much more similarities that could really bring you all together. You all face probably very similar issues, you know, so when you all come together to voice that and make that change, I mean, like that's how powerful you all can be.
And one thing I want to add too is that the word solidarity. That's a word that was embodied by our ancestors.
Yeah.
You know, the Katipuneros embodied solidarity. There was solidarity between African Americans and Philippine revolutionaries in the 1800s against U.S. imperialism. So our people have always understood what solidarity means. And today, there are other peoples in the world who are struggling and experiencing far worse conditions than our people. You know, there's what's happening in Gaza, the genocide that's happening there. We have privileges that we could use to help amplify their voices and help push for peace and justice in those communities. For me, it's like I hope these type of song would inspire us to be proud of what our people have accomplished. But also part of that is be proud of what our people have gone through, the struggles they had to go through to survive and to, you know, basically give birth to us today. You know, because if they didn't go through those struggles, then we wouldn't be here where we are today. We wouldn't have Alamat, you wouldn't have me here, you would not have met me, but you get my point.
And again, it's like, I kind of think about like students in the Philippines, but also there's, when we talk about solidarity, you can build solidarity across the countries right now. Like there's so much we can do in terms of organizing folks, of like bringing people together under a common cause. Because again, when you think about it, the issues that we face really similar issues. And again, sometimes I'm not a student anymore. For people like us who are living in the United States, we have so much privilege
and power
in the sense of like using our voices to make change, right? So, and especially for those who can't, like we have to use our voices to amplify other issues that we're seeing around the globe. Like that's the best thing that we can do for each other.
Yeah, the song talks about a lot of injustices in our communities or in our history that our people fought for. You know, and they were empowered by the beat of drums. So I do hope that this song would empower our younger folks to also dig deeper into the realities of today. Like there are issues happening in the Philippines. The indigenous communities don't have the same rights as a normal Filipino, basically. You know, so there's a lot of different issues in the Philippines and outside the Philippines that are interconnected, and that we could again learn to come together in solidarity with one another, regardless of your race or ethnicity. The thing is, it's okay and wonderful to be proud of your roots. But it's even better if you can be proud of your roots, but at the same time build solidarity with other people. But anyways, this is probably the end of the video because it's been a long conversation. I'm not sure if I'm gonna put the whole thing because it's over almost around 2 hours now. Well, I do hope you enjoyed this reaction / breakdown / podcast discussion about Alamat Dagundong.
It could go on and on and on. You know, I think there's a lot of things that came up in this music video that it's like we could have a whole quarter or semester just talking about these issues.
Whole course.
Seriously, really, like that's how much we can break these issues down. But for the sake of time,
for the sake of time and for the sake of my time editing this later. But before we go, as always, I just want to give a shout out to all my patrons, my subscribers, viewers like you, especially my patrons and my YouTube members. Actually, I don't think I set that up yet. But if you want to be a member, I'll set it up soon. Dakala salamat, daghang salamat, maraming salamat for all your love and support. And again, I want to thank and give a shout out to Kalye in New York City for hosting my book signing event / birthday happy hour party for me. And it's amazing to see our kababayans, our fellow Filipinos, and our friends in different parts of the world, because we're everywhere in the world, or the universe rather. I was gonna promote my books at this point.
Oh.
Because I was about to say that if you want to dig deeper about everything I talk about today, a lot of them are covered in my many books and coloring books. I was gonna show them, but then I realized I don't have copies anymore because I sold them out in New York. So thank you. Dakala salamat, dagang salamat, maraming salamat, terima kasih to everybody in New York who bought my books, as I literally came home with no more books. I no longer have any books on hand to show off on this video, so I'll probably just
do a graphic.
Do a
graphic
flash a graphic of the book covers of my books.
Yeah.
So if you're interested to dig deeper about these topics, you can order them online at kirbyaurolio.com/books.
www.kirbyaurolio.com/books.
So order them
I've
today.
always wanted to do that. You can buy them online right here. Our link will show up online right here.
Yes.
This is how it's like to be on the other end, on this side.
Anyways, maraming salamat. That is it for us today. See you next time. It's me, Kirby. This is Yi and Kirby, Team Yak.
Yeah, we've had
For my OG subscribers from 10 years ago, Team Yak is still here.
This is Team Yak. Team Yak is still here. Okay.
See you next time, or in Tagalog, kita-kits, and in Kapampangan, Mikitix.